Oh, I love Brazilian food. So it's just like every meal, there's always, they basically have always rice, beans, a meat, and a salad. Always. And you're like, whoa. And sometimes a pasta. So lunches will be huge. So rice and beans, they always make, they have this special way of cooking rice where they saute the garlic and onions first and then put in the rice and fry the rice a little bit and then cook it and put water in it. And it's so good. And then their beans, they mix so much spices and not spicy spices, but just normal spices. And then it's also like the best beans I've probably ever had. And then the meat, they always get like steak, or usually it's steak. Sometimes it's chicken because the sisters are like, oh, we know you get steak and we know you guys like to keep your figures, so we're giving you chicken. And we're just like, thanks. And then always a pasta. And then their salad, they season it really differently. They put oil and vinegar and mix that with that and then put salt all over it. So I don't know if it's healthy, but it's salad and it tastes really good. And they have like street food. They have pão de queijo, which is like a cheese ball. It's a lot better than it sounds. So those are really good. There's coxinhas, which I don't know how to explain. Sometimes on the side they have a churrasquinha where they just sell meat and they put like either steak on a steak or chicken on a steak or chicken heart on a steak, which is actually really good. Oh, and then juices. Oh, every time you go into a sister's house, she'd be like, let me make fresh juice for you guys. So we get like, they always get like fresh lemons or fresh maracujá, which is a really good fruit. That's my favorite. And they'd always make fresh juice for you, and I loved it. Oh, I loved it so much. Oh, what else with the food? Oh, the buffets. They have like an all-you-can-eat buffet for like 5 to 10 reais. And it's amazing because that's only like $2 or $3 in the US. So you get all this really good food for like $2 or $3. So it's amazing. They really like their food there. And it's so good. So good.
Food is always very interesting. My favorite, hands down favorite Brazilian food is called feijoada. And it's like this Brazilian black bean soup. And depending on who makes it, like there's lots of meat and like sausage and bacon in it. Sometimes they put a pig head in it and like pig feet and stuff, which sounds really gross, but it's so good. And it's just, I always feel after I eat, I always feel like I do after Thanksgiving. You're just like so tired. You're just like, oh, I could sleep forever. But it's just got this really good taste, and they eat it over rice and with like kale or collard greens and then orange slices. But that was really only special occasions. And so like normally every day we would have rice and beans and chicken and some type of salad and maybe some pasta. So like they would have a green salad, usually with like tomatoes and onions and green peppers sliced over them, and just put a little bit of olive oil and salt. Or there was a potato and beet and carrot salad mixed with mayonnaise. Fruit salad was very common. They eat a lot of things with like condensed milk. So they would just like have fruit salad and just pour that all over it, or table cream. They would do that too. There came a point where we were just like, okay, rice and beans, it's pretty alright. Like I could still eat it every single day, but there came a point where I was like, okay, I think I want a break. And that would like be a random day when somebody would make something different. I'm like, okay, I'm good again. But every day that's what we eat. It's a very, very much a staple. But like you feel so good after you eat it because it's just like healthy food. Because unless you're in the bigger city, a lot of them don't have money to go out and like buy fast food or like to buy all this processed food. And so it was really good because we'd eat and they made us eat so much food. Like there was a point where we finally got away with eating one plate, but if you let them make it for you, they pile it so high. And so we would try to make our own plates, but and then there's mousse de maracujá, passion fruit mousse. I love that stuff, but it like makes you tired after you eat it, so we tried not to eat a ton of it. In one of the areas that I served in, they have this, I don't even know what it is, but it's like this ball and they call it piqui. And you just, like, if you crack it open, there's like a little cashew nut inside of all of these spines, but like if you just throw it in there whole, it like just adds this flavor to the food. And at first I despised it. Like whenever anybody would make something, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna have to like suffer through lunch today. But it was like, I ended up liking it, but for about 3 months out of 1 year, it was picky season. And so they would just go and like they'd be selling it on the sidewalk, and there'd just like be this smell down the street, and you're like, oh, I don't want to walk down that street. But I ended up really liking it after we ate it at one member's house. So there was that. So that took some getting used to. But I think that's only in the Northeast. And then they have this fruit called kaja, and that's only in the Northeast too. And I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like a little piece of heaven in your mouth. And like they normally just like take either frozen pulp or like the fruit itself, and they just throw it together and make juice. So good. There's lots of stuff. But those were probably my favorites. So it was like they just made their juice and then just like rice and beans. I could eat that all the time. Like even now when I go to a Mexican restaurant, I'm like, rice and beans. The one food that I never tried, that I never ever want to try, is called buchada. And I remember we used to walk past this little corner shop that sold it, and it smelled so bad. But like they take, I think it's like beef stomach, and they just like chop up intestines and stuff and make a stew and put it in it and sew it up. I never had a desire to try it. And then there's something called panelada, which I think is almost the same thing, but that's just like a stew-ish. I've never eaten it. I never wanted to, and nobody was ever mean enough to make me eat it. Because like in Brazil, if they offer you food, like you can say no, but like it's really rude. And so they offer it to you. You're just like, yeah, thank you so much. Unless, you know, it's something you're allergic to, then you can just say no. And I remember they had a lot of fruit trees everywhere, like mango trees and papaya trees. And they have this thing called graviola, and it's like this green like skin on the outside, and then inside it's just white with black seeds. So good. They had those trees. And we taught this couple who lived, they took care of like this rich person's land. And so they had orange trees and guavas, and they had this fruit called pitomba. And it's just like in this hard shell, and you crack it open, and it looks like a peeled grape with a seed inside of it. It's so good. And so I just loved it because like, oh, they had this stuff too. I don't remember the name of it. Carambola? Maybe. But it like, I think it was star fruit. It's pretty much star fruit. And one of our families had a tree in their backyard, so they just let us go pick it. And then they had coconuts, fresh coconuts. Like they would pick them from the tree, and like sometimes one convert, he just like picked it off the tree and he peeled it for us right there and just gave it to us. But if you went down the street, like there'd be all these little stands, like, and you'd stick it in the freezer and they pull it out and pop a hole in the top, and you just drink the milk out of it. Oh my gosh. So good. Best cure for an upset stomach. So good. So many things. Mango trees too. I remember we were walking back from an area from an investigator's house, and we saw these 2 mango trees just in the middle of nowhere, and like, hey, free mangoes. And so we go and pick them, and I didn't realize that I'm allergic to the sap that's on them. Like, I can eat them, it's totally fine, but like if I get the sap on me, and so normally if you leave the sap on you, it burns you a little bit. But the next day, like, we've been carrying them for like 4 or 5 hours. And the next day I woke up and I had like hives everywhere, and there were burns in the hives, and like my face was swollen, and I had to go get a shot in a very undesirable part of my body to make it go away. But the food is so good. Like, and everybody has their own little spice that they add to it. I don't really know the difference between any foods from like, besides those from the north to the south, but I know that they call them different things, so I probably know what they are, but I just don't know what they're called in other parts of Brazil. Like they make this corn stuff with cinnamon on top, and in Fortaleza it's called one thing, and in São Paulo it's called another thing, but it's the same food. So
love the food. It's so good, especially in the south. A little bit more about Porto Alegre, or about Rio Grande do Sul. It's cowboy country. The Gaúchos are the cowboys. And so there's a lot of like plains and cattle. There are also some mountains. But their churrasco is really big there. It's their barbecue. And they have these spits that they put the meat on. It's like 2-pronged spits. And they put them on, and they put the meat on the spits, and they put some really big grains of salt on it. That's how they season it. And then they stick it, there's like, the area where they grill or cook the meat is like there's a bar for the spit to rest on, and then there are two holes on the opposite side that the two prongs sit on. So you stick them in there and you can flip them over every once in a while so that it gets cooked all the way through. But oh man, it was so good. It's pretty similar to Tucanos. If you're familiar with Tucanos, that's very similar to the churrasco in the areas I served in, which is really good. Beyond that, we had a lot of chicken and beans and rice and potato salad and cooked kale, and they also would do a lot of, everyone gave us desserts. I don't know if that was just because we were the missionaries and we were visiting, but the desserts were really good too. We had, I don't know what to call them in English, but we had mousse, and it was various flavors. It could be mousse de maracujá, which is like passion fruit, or morango, which is strawberry. Those were two of my favorites. They also had pudim, which is like flan, and I didn't think I was going to like it, but I ended up loving it. There's also arroz doce, which was a sweet rice, and I guess it's like rice pudding, but I'm not sure what rice pudding is otherwise. Something else about Porto Alegre. It's well known for the doces de Pelotas. Pelotas is a city, it's pretty close to Rio Grande, and they just make a ton of sweets there. A lot of sweets and jams and jellies and desserts, and they're really good. They're well known too. It's, I could keep going about the food. The food was so good. It was really yummy. I know that some people would get sick of beans and rice, but I miss beans and rice. It's so good. Beans and rice with some sort of meat. Most of the time it was chicken. And most people would have like a small salad, whether it was like tomatoes and lettuce or beets and carrots or any kind of a mixture of those, or I guess that was the main part. Sometimes they would have fruit, but not very often. They mostly had fruit as dessert. So it was good too. It was all really tasty. Oh, and I learned to love star fruit there. I hadn't ever had star fruit before, but in my last area in Guaíba, there was a member who their family would give us, or would make us churrasco every time we ate at their house on Sunday. And there was one time where they said, "Hey, we have this star fruit tree. Have some star fruit." I'm like, okay. So we started eating it on the road, and I was like, oh, this is some of the best fruit I've ever had. I love this. It was really good.